There is a moment that happens to almost every immigrant studying for the citizenship test. They are sitting with the questions, working through the answers, and they realise something unexpected. They know this history now. The Civil War, the Emancipation Proclamation, the Pilgrims, and the first peoples who were here long before any of it. They know it not because they grew up learning it, but because they chose to learn it. Because becoming a citizen meant enough to them to sit down and do the work. That emotional shift, feeling connected to this history, is what questions 71 through 80 are about. Not just memorising facts, but understanding the country you are choosing, including its challenges and its progress, its moments of extraordinary courage, and the ongoing process of addressing the gaps between its ideals and its history.
Today we cover 10 questions that move from your civic duties as a future citizen directly into the heart of American history. We will give you the context behind every answer and then test your knowledge with a pop quiz in the second half. Let us begin.
Before we move forward, let us warm up. Answer out loud. Who can vote in federal elections, run for federal office, and serve on a jury? Answer: citizens. Only US citizens. Name 2 promises new citizens make in the Oath of Allegiance. Answer: give up loyalty to other countries and defend the Constitution, or any 2 accepted promises. What are 3 rights of everyone living in the United States? Answer: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom of assembly. How can people become United States citizens? Answer: be born in the United States or naturalize. What is one way Americans can serve their country? Answer: vote, pay taxes, obey the law, serve in the military, or run for office.
If any of those were difficult, go back to episode 7 before continuing. Everything builds, and the stronger your foundation, the more confident you will feel when the officer sits across from you. Let's talk about why is it important to pay federal taxes? Federal taxes are required by law. They fund the federal government and the services it provides, and paying them is a civic duty. When you pay federal taxes, you contribute to the infrastructure that makes daily life in the United States possible. The highways you drive on, the national parks you can visit, the military that defends the country, Social Security and Medicare, medical research at institutions like the National Institutes of Health, public schools, federal courts, border protection, and disaster relief. Every one of these things is funded by federal tax revenue, and every working person in the United States contributes to that system. The founders wrote the power to collect taxes into the Constitution, and in 1913, the 16th Amendment made the federal income tax permanent law. Paying your taxes is not just a legal obligation. It is part of the social contract, the agreement among people in this country that we contribute together so that everyone benefits together. For many immigrants from countries with less stable tax systems, this idea can feel different. Here, taxes are the price of a functioning society. As a new citizen, you are both a contributor and a beneficiary. So if you are asked why it is important to pay federal taxes, acceptable answers include: it is required by law, it funds the federal government, it is required by the Constitution, or it is a civic duty. Let's talk about why it's important to register for the Selective Service. The Selective Service system is the United States government's registry of men who could be called to serve in the military if a draft were ever activated. There has not been an active draft since the Vietnam War era, and today, the U.S. military is volunteer-based. However, the Selective Service registration requirement remains in effect and can carry consequences for failure to comply. Who must register? All male U.S. citizens and male immigrants living in the United States, including lawful permanent residents, green card holders, refugees, asylees, and most other male immigrants, are required to register between the ages of 18 and 25. Men on non-immigrant visas, such as student or tourist visas, are generally exempt as long as they remain on a valid visa until they turn 26. If you are a woman watching this, the Selective Service registration requirement currently applies only to men. Women are not required to register. If you are a man who arrived in the United States after your 26th birthday, you are past the registration window, and this does not apply to you. If you arrived between 18 and 25 and did not register, That is something to discuss with an immigration attorney before your naturalization interview, because failure to register during the eligible window can be considered when assessing good moral character. The reasons registration matters include: it is required by law, it is a civic duty, and it helps ensure that if a draft were ever needed, the process would be fair and organized rather than arbitrary. For men now between 18 and 25, register at sss.gov. It takes minutes and is free. So, if you are asked the question, why it is important to register for the Selective Service, the correct answer is: it is required by law, it is a civic duty, and it helps ensure that if a draft were ever needed, the process would be fair and organized rather than arbitrary.
Let's talk about why the colonists came to America. In the 1600s and 1700s, people from Europe began crossing the Atlantic Ocean to settle in what would become the United States. They came for many different reasons, and understanding those reasons helps explain the values later written into the founding documents. Some came for religious freedom after facing persecution in Europe. Some came for political liberty, to escape authoritarian rule and seek a voice in governance. Some came for economic opportunity, the chance to own land or start a business. Some came to escape poverty, persecution, or violence. These motivations mirror reasons people immigrate today. So if asked why the colonists came, acceptable answers include freedom, political liberty, religious freedom, economic opportunity, or to escape persecution.
Let's talk about what problems led to the Civil War. The Civil War, from 1861 to 1865, was the most devastating conflict in American history. A principal cause was slavery. The United States was founded with a contradiction. The Declaration of Independence proclaimed that all men are created equal, while hundreds of thousands of people were enslaved. For decades, that contradiction was managed through political compromise. The Southern economy relied on enslaved labor. The Northern economy became more industrial and, in many places, increasingly opposed to slavery. Debates over whether slavery could expand into new territories pushed tensions to a breaking point. Other contributing factors included disputes over states' rights and deep economic and cultural differences. But slavery was central. If asked to name one problem that led to the Civil War, valid answers include slavery, economic differences between North and South, or states' rights.
Let's talk about what did the Emancipation Proclamation do? On January 1st, 1863, in the middle of the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. It declared that all enslaved people in Confederate-held territory were free. The proclamation did not immediately free every enslaved person in the country, because it applied only to states in rebellion, and Confederate authorities did not comply. But it transformed the meaning of the war from a struggle to preserve the Union into one that included human freedom as a central aim. It authorized African American men to enlist in the Union Army and sent a powerful moral message about what the United States was fighting for. It also set in motion the political and legal changes that led to the 13th Amendment. So if asked what the Emancipation Proclamation did, a correct answer is, it declared that enslaved people in Confederate states were free.
Let's talk about what did the 13th Amendment do? The 13th Amendment, ratified in December 1865, abolished slavery and involuntary servitude throughout the United States, except as a punishment for a crime after conviction. This amendment completed the legal end of slavery that the Emancipation Proclamation had begun. It states that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States or any place subject to its jurisdiction, except as punishment after conviction. This change in the Constitution closed a painful contradiction and laid a foundation for the later Reconstruction amendments that expanded civil rights. One way students remember this is to link the Emancipation Proclamation with the 13th Amendment. The proclamation changed the war's purpose, and the amendment changed the law. Attorney Chris M. Ingram, in conversations with clients studying for the test, often emphasizes how this moment in history connects to questions about citizenship and civic responsibility. He underscores how the law changed over time and how those changes shape the country new citizens are joining. So, if you are asked the question, what did the 13th Amendment do? You can confidently answer, it abolished slavery. Let's talk about the name of American Indian tribes. Long before European settlers arrived, the land that is now the United States was home to hundreds of distinct nations, each with its own language, culture, governance, and spiritual traditions. The Cherokee Nation, the Navajo Nation, the Sioux, the Apache, the Iroquois Confederacy, the Pueblo peoples, the Cheyenne, the Comanche, the Seminole, and many others, each have their own histories that are inseparable from the history of America. Any recognized tribe is an acceptable answer on the test. So, if you are asked the question, name one of American Indian tribes, you can confidently answer Cherokee, Navajo, Sioux, Apache, Iroquois, Pueblo, Cheyenne, Comanche, Seminole, or any recognized tribe. Let's talk about why did the Pilgrims come to America? In 1620, a group of English separatists, known as the Pilgrims, sailed on the Mayflower to what is now Massachusetts, seeking religious freedom. They had faced persecution in England and wanted the ability to worship without interference. Before landing, they signed the Mayflower Compact to govern themselves by mutual consent, an early example of self-government. Not all survived the first winter, but those who did helped create a story that became part of the nation's identity. If asked why the Pilgrims came, the correct answer is for religious freedom.
Let's talk about who lived in America before the Europeans arrived. American Indians, also called Native Americans, lived in America for thousands of years before European explorers and settlers arrived. The first peoples crossed into North America from Asia long ago and developed many distinct cultures across the continent. When Europeans arrived in the late 1400s and 1500s, they found a continent already deeply inhabited. The history that followed, displacement, violence, and loss of land and culture, is a painful part of American history and should be acknowledged. If asked who lived in America before Europeans arrived, the correct answer is American Indians or Native Americans.
Let's talk about what ship brought the Pilgrims to America. The Mayflower brought the Pilgrims to America in 1620. It was a cargo ship of about 100 feet that carried approximately 102 passengers across the Atlantic on a difficult journey. Before the passengers disembarked, 41 male passengers signed the Mayflower Compact, agreeing to govern their settlement by shared rules. The Mayflower is remembered both for the voyage and for the Compact's early example of self-government. If asked what ship brought the Pilgrims, the correct answer is the Mayflower.
You have covered 10 questions that span from personal civic duties to the first peoples of this continent and the earliest European settlements. These are the questions that place you inside the sweep of American history, not as an outsider studying it, but as someone who is about to become part of it. Now let us see what has stuck. Pop quiz. Answer out loud before the answers appear. 71. Why is it important to pay federal taxes? The correct answer is required by law, funds the federal government, required by the Constitution or civic duty. 72. It is important for all men aged 18 through 25 to register for the Selective Service. Name one reason why. The correct answer is required by law, civic duty, or makes the draft fair if needed. 73. The colonists came to America for many reasons. Name one. The correct answer is freedom, political liberty, religious freedom, economic opportunity, or to escape persecution. 74. Name one problem that led to the Civil War. The correct answer is slavery, economic differences between North and South or states' rights. 75. What did the Emancipation Proclamation do? The correct answer is declared enslaved people in Confederate states to be free. 76. What did the 13th Amendment do? The correct answer is abolish slavery. 77. Name one American Indian tribe. The correct answer is Cherokee, Navajo, Sioux, Apache, Iroquois, Pueblo, Cheyenne, Comanche, Seminole, or any recognized tribe. 78. Why did the Pilgrims come to America? The correct answer is for religious freedom. 79. Who lived in America before the Europeans arrived? The correct answer is American Indians/Native Americans. 80. What ship brought the Pilgrims to America? The correct answer is the Mayflower.
If you are a man between 18 and 25 and have not yet registered for the Selective Service, do it today at sss.gov. It takes a few minutes and it is free. If you are unsure whether your registration status could affect your citizenship application, speak with an immigration attorney before your interview.
For learners who want legal help with immigration steps before naturalization, contact the law offices of Chris M. Ingram for guidance and to request a consultation. Attorney Chris M. Ingram and his team have helped clients navigate visas, green cards, and naturalization interviews for more than 20 years. Their firm assists with EB1 and EB2 green cards, O1 visas, and other pathways, and can help clarify whether things like selective service history could affect an application. For factual updates or to request a consultation, visit breakthroughusa.com or contact the firm directly.
For the history questions in this episode, the key is understanding connections. The Civil War was driven in large part by slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation shifted the meaning of the war, and the 13th Amendment made the end of slavery part of the Constitution. Those three answers form a single story, and knowing the story helps you remember the answers. Fatima was 34 years old when she sat down with the citizenship study materials for the first time. She'd come from Senegal on an F1 visa at 22, finished a master's degree in public health, married, had 2 children born in Texas, and spent the next decade on a path that eventually led to a green card and then to her N400 application. She had always been busy. There was always a reason to wait. The night she studied questions 74 through 76, she sat at the kitchen table after her children were asleep and read about the Civil War, the Emancipation Proclamation, and the 13th Amendment. She knew these things had happened, but she had never understood them this clearly before. The next morning, she told her daughter, "The country has had serious failures in its past and has taken steps over time to address them through law and reform. I want to be a citizen of a country that takes those steps." She passed her interview on the first attempt. Her daughter, born in Texas, sat in the front row of the naturalization ceremony. You have now completed questions 71 through 80. 10 more answers locked in. 10 more steps toward the moment everything changes. We will see you in the next lesson. Keep going. You have got this.